Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Robin Pod Weekly. A hard-fought victory over Leeds Rhinos has seen Rovers maintain their position at the top of Super League, and with relegation threatened Salford up next, Rovers are in rude health ahead of the Challenge Cup semi-final against Catalan. Joining me to discuss all the latest goings on down in HU9 is Robin Pod regular Graham Turner and Bazza Kingston, and Steve Till shares more memories in Robin's Revisited, and we finish off by answering all your questions in question time. Hello, Graham. How are we doing?
Very well, Johno. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. Bazza, people watching this will be used to seeing the inside of your cab. The people listening to it might not have had that benefit. And we always big up Bazza's luxury lorry, but it's not good news at the moment, is it, Bazza?
No, mate. It's been an absolute headache this afternoon. Having to get my trailer in for some minor repairs and get here and get sorted, ready to go this wheel. So, no, mate, not having the best day today, kid.
Yeah, there you go. A bit of light relief, Graham. This is what I offer people, a little bit of light relief. And coming on the Robin Pod is definitely doing that for Bazza. Let's go straight into the Leeds Rhinos game, Graham, because it was a 20 points to 14 victory for the Robins. It was a hard-fought victory, though, wasn't it?
Very hard-fought. I think Leeds caused us lots of problems all game. And I think many people would have, at a certain point in the game, thought, that's it, game's done, we're going to come away with a loss on this one. Somehow, not quite sure how, through adversity, we found a way to turn that round. And again, I'm still not worked out quite how we came away with the 2 points at the end of that one, given the trials and tribulations of the game as such. And we could probably spend all afternoon talking about the game itself and what went on, what didn't go on, what should have gone on, and the fallout since then. So yeah, very, very hard fought. I thought the big takeaway from me was that type of victory is what top teams do. That's what they've got in their locker. The average teams don't have that, and Leeds would have won that comfortably if we were an average team. But I think the way we are now, our attitude, our grit, our determination, somehow managed to get us over the line in that one. And it's still the same 2 points, but it's a different way of winning 2 points. And I think that mark of a top team, being able to do that in adversity and when things aren't necessarily going your way, you aren't playing your most sparkling rugby, but you still come away with 2 points over a very good Leeds team that we saw on Friday night.
Yeah, Bazza, the big pre-game talk was about the lineup, wasn't it? I think many people expected Kershaw to slot straight into the wing position, Broadbent probably taking the opposite wing side, and then Morg lining up at full-back. When we saw the team announced, of course, there was no Kershaw, with Hiku lining up with Batchelor, Hiku out on the wing, Batchelor at centre, and then Gildart and Broadbent on the other side. Was that something that caught you off guard?
Yeah, massively. When I seen it, I was left scratching my head thinking, well, is Batch going to be wasted out there? And especially 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗴𝗏. Like, we know 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗏, he's got a yard of pace on him. And I was scratching my head, but when you look at the finer details, it actually made sense. And that's why we're fans, and Willie Peters knows what he's doing. Like, 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗏 doesn't shy away from the hard graft. And like Willie Peters alluded to, his plan was to use 𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗏 to get them hard yards out the 20 zone. And when you're looking at Leeds' backline, their centres and wingers, especially like Ryan Hall, he needed a bit of weight on the edges, and it was a bit of a masterstroke for me. I mean, at one point we saw Batch out on the wing going in for his try. So yeah, I was left scratching my head, but he's done it again. Called a team where we were questioning it, going, why you done that? And it's paid off. So just keep doing what you're doing, Willie. That's all I can say to that.
Yeah, and Graham, I mean, I think it was interesting what Peter said. I think it was post-game about Kershaw and how he sees him as an out-and-out winger, which probably means he sees him more as an attacking threat in term, rather than someone who's going to run out a back plane. Of course, with Davis missing, there was some big meters that we needed covering there, weren't they, in terms of your kick return. And I think, you know, it was justified when you look at who made the most meters for Rovers. Well, there was Jack Broadbent, who made 182 metres from 22 carries. Next was 𝗵𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗧 with 181 metres from 24. So you can see the specific role that 𝗃𝗂𝗃𝗂 had when he was put into that wing spot. Batchelor playing the centre might have caught people off guard, but I'm sure, I think Peter said that, Rovers haven't lost with Batchelor playing in the centre spot, which is a great record for him. But, you know, in hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And the supporters, we don't always have that, but putting 𝗃𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗃 in that wing spot was fully justified.
Yeah, I think there's another element to that as well, Johno, as well as the backfield carry stuff. I think the physical presence of 𝗃𝗂𝗃𝗂, look, ordinarily he would have been lined up against Hawley.
Yeah.
So that direct mismatch, you could argue, of size and physicality of Kershaw against Hall could have had a detrimental effect on our ability to stop Leeds' coming forward out of their own 20, for example, or so I think that direct matchup, you know, physically very similar to each other. Obviously, we know what happened partway through that game when Ryan Hall had to go off with injury, but I think that initial idea was to use 𝗃𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗃. We know he's a great runner with the ball, as he proved on that break for the opening try that created it, but also he's strong. He's very strong as well. We've seen it in the derby where he got free and through and free, and you know, we see it time and time again where he's a big body that can move well, and he's not just running in a straight line. He can run all sorts of angles and directions as well. So I think he's a real tricky customer, and that coupled with the fact of we needed to be big and strong on that side to counter Ryan Hall's threat. I think that was, thinking logically, I think that was part of the discussion that the coaching team must have had back there.
Yeah, Bazza, I mean, to be fair, after the opening 10 minutes, we saw a yellow card for Sinfield, we saw Broadbent going for a try, and we saw then Hall go off injured, which, of course, was a huge part of their plan, wasn't it, to get meters from the kicks. I always thought, maybe naively, thinking we're home and hosed here, I thought it's going to be a comfortable routine victory. Credit to Leeds, though, because they rallied, and they didn't have to make it a difficult encounter for us in that first half.
Well, yeah, absolutely, they did. I don't feel, Broadbent took his try really well, but I don't feel that was kind of Leeds' fault, because Jack Sinfield got sin-binned, and while he was in the bin, Jake Connor dislocated his finger. Now, Leeds had the option to substitute him or use the green card, and they opted to use the green card, which put them down to 11, and we took full advantage. But credit where credit's due, they come back at us and they matched us very, very well down the middle. For me, it felt like a lucky escape, that result, because I don't know, some part of me feels like Leeds was really, really targeting that game and they put everything into it. But what was pleasing the most for me is that we don't have the best of records after a derby backing it up with another victory, but this time we did. Coming through the other side, especially after that intense game against Hull FC. But another thing, when we went down to 12, it left me scratching my head thinking, you know, what else is going to go against us? I did think it was curtains for us, and I think it's probably one of very few times I've seen Rovers galvanise after losing a man, and I don't know, it felt like they woke up. Mikey stepped on the centre stage and run riot for me, and yeah, I think it was Leeds' game to lose, in my opinion, and we took full advantage of it.
I think there's one stat, John, that came out through commentary, and I think probably one that as many fans, we underplayed it a lot, of Leeds' defensive record being, I think it was the second best in the comp, something like that. So that, from where they were last season, is a marked improvement, and one that's sort of gone on quietly behind the scenes with under Brad Arthur, that they've changed, you know, systems or ways of playing defensively. That's meant they've locked a lot of things up. And look, you don't beat Wigan, easily, so they had to work hard for that. So we should have recognised that they've got that sort of ability in them, and then coupled with the fact of the defensive improvements, that across the park, was them. I think them playing their best game this season, and I'm not sure how much more improvement they've got in them. But yeah, it still wasn't enough to turn us over, and I think we've still got much more improvement in that.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look at the halftime score, 6-6, it was a proper arm wrestle, wasn't it? There was big hits going in down that middle play. We saw some great efforts. I mean, one player who's not really been spoke about in terms of his contribution was 𝗪𝗏𝗏. 39 tackles, 15 carries, 132 metres. And for me, he did the pre-game press conference last week, Bazza. He's a player who's so important for our side, isn't he? Because you have 𝗪𝗏𝗏 and Sue and 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 who'll come in and try to bash him up a bit and bring aggression size. 𝗪𝗏𝗏 does he's got that engine where he can keep going and going, but he's got the size as well, And for me, he's been one of the standout players so far this season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, last year it was a bit of the star name. Everyone was talking about him, but since JWH has come, I feel 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏's gone under the radar a little bit. He's just been going about his business real quietly, and it don't ever take a backward step. And if I remember rightly, that Leeds game, he played quite a lot in the second row, and for a big out and out prop, he really did not look out of place at second row. He was running riot, and I think he's got to be one of our top meter makers this year. But yeah, for me, 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏 has gone under the radar this year a little bit. A bit like Dean Adley, just does the gritty, hard stuff that no one, should we say, appreciates and acknowledges what he actually gets through, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I suppose that's, in a way, Graham, that is a good thing, isn't it? Because you need these players in your side to go about their business, because without them, the other players who might be the ones who make that little bit of magic, they can't do that without these players.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd sort of throw out a theory of mine here, is that this is on the back of the JWH effect. And what I mean by that is the level of consistency that he's brought to performances over the last few weeks, and the level of the high level of consistency, not just an average level, the high level of consistency of his performance has raised Sue's game, it's raised 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏's game, it's raised Luckley's game, and those are the four usual interchanges. I think they've all stepped up a little, 1-2% since the beginning of the season. And again, I don't know whether it's true, but I wonder if that's the JWH effect, the stuff you don't see, but is absolutely integral to the sort of the team dynamic, and them as a collective four, and you throw the impact that Brown's been having off the bench into that mix as well. It's of the same ilk, and I just wonder if it's all stemming from that impact that's been had. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that, but that was just an observation of mine that I thought was really interesting, because those four up front are super consistent, and like you said, they're just going about the 7 or 8 out of 10 every single week now.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is obviously what JWH demands from people in terms of how he approaches the game. And what was really interesting for me was, if anyone's watched Robin's on the Inside on YouTube following the Leeds game, if you see the post-match celebrations, and of course, don't get me wrong, when you're celebrating a victory, I mean, the first thing that caught my attention was 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏 walking down the tunnel, and I think he said something like, "We got away with that one," or something like that. So the players realised what an arm wrestle it had been, but then you saw the players in the changing rooms, and just the happiness, the togetherness. You had forwards talking to the backs. You had people, and JWH was centre of that. He was part of that, and I think, hey, look, it's not all just him, because Willie Peters has been moulded in this changing room for a long time, and he's probably identified somebody like 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 as being the the one to ice it, just that one more player that we need potentially. They've got a really strong leadership group, haven't they? So it's great to see, and I think it's probably in these kind of games where Hargreaves comes to the fore, not necessarily because what he does on the pitch, although I will say I think he made 25 plus tackles. I think it's funny, Bazza, isn't it? Because if Hargreaves don't make 100 metres and don't barge everybody over, everyone thinks he's had a bad game. And then they sort of forget about all the nuances of the game, about how he's attracting 4 defenders, how he's work rate and his effort, and the fact he is fronting up as a defender. A lot of times, props aren't necessarily seen as being that frontline defender. The sort of being all about the attacking, but Hargreaves is backing up. Another one who I just think, take away his name, he'd probably go under the radar a little bit because of the performance. But he's another one in that engine room, so consistent, and alongside 𝗂𝗲 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can see what Jared has done just for the whole camp, like the whole attitude. People are looking up to him for advice of how to train, what to eat, and just how to go about the daily business. And what he does on the field, I think only people who I don't really digest the rugby, really pay attention, actually see what he does. Whereas just your everyday fan just goes, oh no, he's had a rubbish game, he hasn't made a tackle bust yet. But like you've just said, like just his presence attracts 3, 4, 5 players round him, which creates gaps. If I had my way, obviously Jared, he's going to retire at the end of the year, but if there was some sort of option where he wanted to stay in the UK for another year, I tell you what, I'd love him to work alongside Skid in the back room. I think
you know what, mate? I've no information whatsoever, but I've thought he's gone to the effort of his family are over here and stuff like that. Yeah, he might not be staying on in a playing capacity, but is there another role for him somewhere? And maybe that's on the cards. I don't know. Who knows? But there's no doubt that he'll probably have one eye on what's after. Well, of course he will. What's next?
Yeah.
Whether opportunities with the Robins. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. Graham, after half time, Leeds score, Lum. Great try from them, to be fair. And then 𝗂𝗲 gets sent off. Obviously, we've seen that there's no further punishment. At the time, I think the players were a little bit bewildered. You saw 𝗂𝗲 trying to remonstrate with the referee about, what could he do? It seemed to be a bit of a harsh call, and which has obviously then been proved pretty much right because the fact he has got no further sanctions against him. But it was a bad time for that to happen, wasn't it? And most Rovers supporters would have probably been thinking the worst at that stage. Yeah,
I think, look, we can talk about the fallout afterward with regards to the reds and yellows and all of that. I think most people, well, 99.9% people in the ground at the time and watching on TV agreed that probably all 3 of those incidents were yellow card incidents. Go and sit down for 10 minutes. Let's crack on. And even the Handley one, I'm not convinced that's a red one either. So, the timing of when it happened, that was when you probably thought, right, we're down on the scoreboard. We've got a penalty against us coming. They're going to kick another 2 points to that, take them even further ahead. We're going to be down to 12. It's going to be unlikely that we're going to get a result out of this one. And then, I think it was maybe with 15 minutes to go, was it perhaps something like that, 20 minutes to go that we had to play with 12. Something just changed in the mindset and the mood after that incident. And I think if you watch it on playback, there's Minchella sort of telling everybody to calm down a bit. Let's go through processes. Let's get back to our game plan. And that incident there, I wonder if it had something that galvanised us in a different way to put the last 15-minute performance in that we did. Yeah, and there's no doubt, Bazza, this side believe that they are in the game all the time. Regardless of the scoreline, they believe that they are in it. And then we saw, of course, Miller scoring a penalty on the back of the 𝗂𝗲 sending off. But our Swiss Army knife came to the fore, didn't he, with his second try of the game. He got the Sky Sports Man of the match. Broadbent, he seems to be, whatever position you put him in, he seems to be effective, and he comes up with big plays. And there's no doubt at that time, that try, we was desperate for that. With 12 minutes to go,
we was desperate for that. And I mean, to be fair, I saw a lot of people when we signed Jack Broadbent almost sort of poo-pooing it, going, he's spent, he's not the player that you think he's going to be. He's had good conditioning. Let's get it right. He's had a good run. I don't think he's suffered an injury, or if he has, it's only been a slight one where he's maybe missed a couple of weeks. He's been coached by 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏, and you can tell, like I've mentioned on previous Robin pods, he's a 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏 favourite. And why shouldn't he be? Because look at what he comes up with when he slots into the positions that Peters puts him in.
Exactly. He's a little bit like another Dean Hadley. Like, obviously he's not in the front row, but he has that utility value, and he's willing to learn and grow as a player. If 𝗬𝗂𝗧𝗏 started him at prop, but he'd put his hand up, he'd have a go. He don't shy away from anything. And it's been an absolute pleasure over the last 12 months to see Jack Broadbent grow as a player, and his skill level is gone up again. A lot of people said that he had the cocky attitude, but whatever this attitude is at Leeds or Castleford is certainly improved it right now, because his attitude is just for the team and working hard for the team, and it's just, I don't know, he's one of the better signings that I think Rovers have made. What again goes under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, Graham, there was that was such an important trial. I think there was 3 things that happened though, which obviously then promoted Rovers to the victory. One was Bill Leyland coming on. Mikey Lewis has talked about how he came and lifted the side. It's funny because if you look at his stats, it's not actually that impressive in terms of tackles and meters made and runs from dummy runner. But his presence, what he did in that moment, inspired the players. And that's the thing that sometimes the supporters, we can't grasp about what they do on the pitch and what they see and how that impacts the game. So Leyland coming on was huge. I think Jack Brown's stint that he did at the end of the game, I think he came on and was energetic. He had a bit of presence, he had a bit of size. And then also, don't forget the red card for Hanley. Them 3 things together, I think then conspired against Leeds to sway it in our favour. The Hanley one, was it a reaction to Sue's trying to level it up? I don't know. I think that's maybe a bit of naive to think that that's what referees do, but it seemed to be pretty much on par with what Sue did. But I think once the referee has gone down that route, Graham, it's very hard for them to then come away from what they've done. And I would argue that the irony is Sinfield, who got the yellow card, that was probably the worst one out of the 3 of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think once they've dished that first red out to Jesse there, they've left themselves nowhere to go with Handley's, because it's an exact same replica of the discussion that they had with Handley that they had with Sue. So he's got to show him the red card for consistency purposes on that one. And like I said before, 99.9% of the people, I'm sure, would have been content if all 3 of those had been yellow cards, 10 minutes and let's move on. But yeah, I'm sure the Leeds fans, and I've seen a few of their messages flying about afterwards about that. But that's up to them to argue their case. But I think the thing for me on this is everybody's getting on Kendall's back for sending him off, but it's actually the video ref that makes the call on this one.
Yeah.
So it's not Kendall's just following the action. He's not going to overtake. He's just said to somebody, "Look, I think there's been head contact there. Have a look at it for me." So it's the whoever's on the video ref duties that's making the call on that one. I think all 3 were penalties, definitely. All 3 were, which Kendall picked up on. All 3 were yellow cards, which to an effect is dished something out, but on the advice of the video ref. So I think it's the video ref, if you're looking to point fingers, that's got it wrong in terms of what's happened since with the appeal. Well, not even the appeal. I don't think we even had to appeal. We just sort of got waved through at the disciplinary bit. But there's something got to be done there in understanding the game a bit more. And John Wilkin, I'm sure you've seen it by now, but John Wilkin afterward had a proper rant about the state of the game.
Mate, it was like me after £6.
Yeah. And I've seen that, Bazza. It's not a pretty sight. John Wilkin was calling the sort of state of the game as tin pot, and he had a real valid point in terms of if that's how we're playing the game now and how we're judging it on players who have got absolutely nowhere to go, and we're calling that as a deliberate headshot, then the game's in a complete mess. So I think there's something that needs to happen behind the scenes with the rule makers and officiators that needs to get a grip of this, because if it doesn't, it's going to very, very quickly spiral into a lot of people becoming disgruntled with the game, because it is a physical contact game. Everybody accepts that there are instances where accidental contact with the head is inevitable. It's the deliberate ones you need to rule out.
Yeah, and that's, to be fair, Bazza, I think, to the credit, once there's a groundswell of opinion, the RFL seem to act upon it. So if you remember last season, I mean, we saw that ridiculous New Brown incident, didn't we, where referees were sending players, and after that, it got better. And I wonder if this is maybe a moment in time, a line in the sand where things will change. Magic Weekend, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a massive spectacle. The last thing that the powers that be, for a better word, one is people talking about video refereeing decisions. It's about the product on the pitch. So I wonder if there's going to be a change, because I think this is probably the line in the sand moment. Yeah,
well, I kind of not understanding it at the minute, because the season started off absolutely fantastic. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 rounds, I had a bit of praise for the referees. We've seen some brilliant rugby. It was flowing, and there was some really, really good big shots going in. And I just feel like since the 𝗀𝗂𝗀𝗏 incident, it's sort of dropped. And I watched every game last weekend, and the cards that was flying about, and I feel like we've just gone back 12 months. I'm hoping there's some sort of meeting and, start using common sense, because I think they're not dishing out these bans because we all want to see the best players on the show at Magic. We don't all want to be turning up for Magic. Everyone's going to be watching it, the NRL, the lot. And they don't want to be seeing people like Sue or Anley or Mason Lee, missing out because of a yellow card and getting thrown a pre-match ban. They want to see the most competitive games and, like you've just said, the best products. So, yeah, they're quick to give the cards out, but they're not really backing it up with suspensions, whereas you kind of expect suspensions with some challenges. So I think they just need to, if they're going to throw cards out, just throw yellows out.
Yeah, and Graham, I mean, the Robins took full advantage, didn't they, once Hanley had been sent off. First we saw Batchelor go over, and then we saw Magic Mikey come up with the big play, didn't we? Right towards the back end of the game, just when it was needed. The match winner, that's what it was, the match winner. And that was the magic moment. I mean, to be fair, I had a bit of a quiet game. I don't think it was. But this goes back to sort of Warren Hargreaves, is that what do you want him to do every game? To be, every time he gets the ball, sidestepping, running through and coming out with his... The whole point of the 80-minute game is that sometimes it's what you do once, not what you do 10 times. And if you do that one thing brilliantly, that's what wins the game. And that's why you've got teammates, because then it's up to them to then give you that opportunity by the way they play. And I mean, you could it was a little bit reminiscent, and it's totally different because we're coming up to Magic Weekend, about when Hodgson broke free and scored that try, how Lewis seemed to just speed up as soon as he got that return ball, and he was watching it, and then he went, and then you just knew he was going to score that try. And to see the Robins celebrating like they did, I think they knew that was an important try.
Yeah, and I think just one step backwards from that, Johno, don't forget that 40-20 that Mikey Lewis put in.
Yeah,
as well.
I was going to mention that, because that is as well as Jack Brown, Bill Leyland, Hanley sent. That was a massive moment in the game.
Because I think we capitalised on that 40-20 with was it Batchelor's try that we got after that one, I think, wasn't it? So,
and it came out of nowhere as well, didn't it?
It didn't. The game was sort of drifting towards the last 10 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. That went in, and all of a sudden there was a massive injection of something that then forced us over the line, that then put the belief back in the tanks, and we then went down, like you said, and Mikey got that try. But I think if you watch, and they analysed it in review on commentary when we watched it back again, And you sort of see the cleverness in Lewis's positioning here. He makes a call right at the last minute to jump to the left and receive that ball. If he'd have gone right, he's gone into traffic and he's gone the short side and created that, I think it was maybe 4v3 or 3v2, whatever the overload was. But it was a real last minute call and he spotted the numbers and created that extra number, which, again, in live speed, it's really hard to pick up on. But when they slowed it down and analysed it, you can sort of see that jump that he makes to dive off left. And it's obviously premeditated because whoever's playing the ball to him knows about it. But then from there, yeah, it's just about, can you execute a pass out to Broadbent, which he did. He cut out Gildart out of the mix, and all of a sudden Broadbent's got some clean air in front of him, and then plays a lovely little 1-2 reverse with Lewis. And then, yeah, there was that split second where I thought, oh, Lewis is going to get grabbed, and then realised it was a number 10 chasing him, and quite quickly realised that he was going to put the turbos on. And the only obstacle then was Jake Connor coming back, who didn't even bother to try and stop him getting closer to the post. But yeah, that was one of those moments where, like you alluded to there, it's one of those where, in the football analogy, that the striker's done nothing but he's scored 3 goals. He's done nothing but apart from just tap 2 in and head another one in. He's done his job when it's mattered. That's the key point here, is that Lewis can't be 9 out of 10 every single week, 80 minutes a game. We have to accept that there are games where other people, like you say, the teammates have to step up. They have to grind it out to provide the platform so that in those last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, he can do that stuff.
Yeah, and Bazza, I mean, last bit on this is Jez Litton. He had to play a bit of a different role, didn't he? Because obviously with the McAlorum injury, pre-game, I assumed Leyland probably won't be playing because of the talk about Peters gave about Leyland being a project, and don't forget he's had an ACL and he's probably not going to be ready for it. And then we saw him come on. He did a 16-minute stint. Litton changed his game. I mean, he put a mammoth defensive effort in, 40 tackles, and that was with him being off the pitch for 16 minutes as well. So he certainly put himself about, played a different role. But that's that versatility that we need from Jez as well. He's not just the player now who comes on, makes things happen with his quick passes, quick darting runs. He's also able to front up in defence.
Yeah, I mean, Jez has just been absolutely outstanding this year. With Mickey Mack out, he's really stood up. He's tackling just as hard as Mickey Mack alone for me. Don't put a foot wrong, and it will play anywhere on the park if that's needed, if it's in the arse or at hooking roll. But I thought Willie Peters got it absolutely bang on, because at the start of the game, obviously Jez does what Jez does, runs a riot, and then Willie Peters used Bill Leyland really, really well, because Bill Leyland's been out for a little while, so it just dripped him in, get a bit of game time, get a bit of Super League experience. I know it was only 16 minutes, but it was to give Jez a breather, and Bill Leyland he just wants to impress, and he's full of energy. And while Leeds are tiring, all he's doing is just zapping the energy out of Leeds. And then when the time's right, Jez has had a breather, bring him back on and just tear him to bits. And I don't know, not just Jez Litton, I think the full team are doing everything that's required, everything that's asked for them. They're not just out and out, I'm a centre or I'm a prop, I'm not doing out else. The boys are working hard, not just for each other, but for Willie, and they're doing what's required. And that's real, like, family based. I don't know how to describe it, but you can see.
They're playing for each other, aren't they? You see that they are playing for each other. They want the result for the teammate as much as they want it for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the interesting lines in the post-match presser, and I don't know if anybody else picked up on this, was when Peters was asked about Leyland's introduction and his impact. He said, "Yeah, it was great, good to get him on the pitch, etc." He said, "But he gave me some pelters when I hauled him off." So that tells me that Leyland's also ready to step up and do bigger minutes and put himself forward for that shift. That shift we saw for 16 minutes only. We saw what he can do, and it wasn't a gentle introduction. Go and ease yourself into the game. Go and make an impact was the message that he came away with, and he was gutted that he got hooked after 16 minutes of only 16 minutes. So that as an attitude is you're disappointed when you get taken off. He's not looking for an easy ride and easy. He wants to go on and make a difference, which is again going back to that attitude thing that they've all got for working for each other. He's got that. He doesn't have to work up to that. That sort of seemed to be instilled. And you alluded to it earlier, John, about Mikey Lewis feeding off that energy that Leyland brought. If he'd have just come on and said, "Go on and do 15 minutes, and then we'll get you off," it might have just been quite a lackluster one, and we might not have seen that. But the dynamics that he brought to it, as Lewis said, it inspired other things to happen on the back of it.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about Salford very shortly, Graham. Of course, there was adversity for the Robins in terms of Tkanoe's HIA going off the pitch. I think that's gone a little bit under the radar about how they then had to reshuffle the pack to accommodate him not being on. Bear in mind, we already had Batchelor playing in the centres. There was a lot to like about how they reacted to that. And normally you'd look at someone like Tkanoe going off, that's it, what a threat we're losing. But we're talking about the forwards a lot. Someone mentioned to me about the impact Luckley's having. And again, how he just comes in, makes some hard meters. He had an average gain of 9 meters, 6 carries, 56 meters, 18 tackles, but his offload game as well. He's always a threat. I don't know how he gets he must have Vaseline on his arms, Graham. I mean, you'll probably know more about that than me, but how he's able to get his arms away and put that ball out there. It's a great, and that's what we talked about earlier. All the props bring something different.
Yeah, and when you've got that threat as a defender, I'm guessing that it's there, so you might have to commit an extra man to stop that into the tackle. And even if the offload doesn't happen, you've still got 3 or 4 bodies occupied. And with a quick play of the ball, there's obviously space elsewhere to exploit. If that happens, if it does come off, great, but make sure it's done in the right areas of the field. You don't want to be overplaying that, and that's just your one-trick pony. You've got to work out when and where to do that, and there's got to be good communication and understanding of when that's the right time to do it. But yeah, as a weapon, you've seen how destructive it can be when somebody who we've played against is a notorious offloader and we can't clamp it up in time, and it creates an extra 8, 10, 12 metres on the back of it, or a scoop, a further scoop from the dummy half who's waiting for it, and it just disrupts anything that might have been organised as a defensive line. It just absolutely kills you for them becoming disorganised.
Yeah, right. We've got Salford up next. It's Magic Weekend, one of the big highlights of the Rugby League calendar. Before then, though, I caught with Steve Till for Robins Revisited. Steve, it's great to have you back on the Robin pod for this week's Robin Revisited. Of course, the Robins are in Newcastle for Magic Weekend. What have you got for us this week?
Well, we play Salford this weekend, don't we? And when we started this feature last year, we looked at individual players. And this year we changed our tack to looking at matches. So I'm going to go back to Sunday, the 22nd of December. I've written Sunday, the 22nd of December, and I haven't written the year. So we'll go back to Sunday, the 22nd of December in the year whatever. But Rovers played Salford. But what I want to mention, as I say, we mentioned individuals last year, but there's one individual, unlike all the others, the Phil Laws, the Mike Smiths, all legends with the club, David Watkinson, they all played in successful Rovers teams. They played in teams, their longevity within the team gained the team a lot of success. But there's one man who played in this match against Salford, who was a legend within the club, who gave his heart and soul to the club, but never got the success that all those players got. And I refer, of course, no doubt you'll guess, Johno, to Paul Fletcher, Psycho. He was with Rovers. He played in that match against Salford, but he made 338 appearances for Rovers. He scored a try on his debut, when Bradford beat Rovers 46-4. And it was a good Bradford team that beat Rovers. And they also scored a try as Rovers beat Hull 20 points to 8 in 1991 in front of 8,557 spectators. A local derby in front of 8,557. That's how far we'd sunk. But one man who stood out all through that tough time, all through the Championship years and the Division 3 years, and refused to leave Rovers despite offers from Super League clubs, was Paul Fletcher. And there'll be many Rovers fans listening to this, watching this, who will agree with me. Is one of the legends of the club. Incidentally, we'll go back to that Sunday on the 22nd of December, whatever year it was. Rovers actually beat Salford 28-7 in front of a crowd of 3,460. Bright Sodji got 2 tries. Bishop got 1, Lyman got 1, Thompson got 1, and Mick Fletcher, Paul's namesake, he got 4 goals. But looking at that game, you look at the team and you look at the name Paul Fletcher, which stood out.
Great, and there's no doubt you'll have great memories of Psycho.
Yeah. Again, I think maybe last year or the season before, Johno, when we talked in the same breaths about somebody like Scott Morrell as well, a full character of the game, somebody who gave his all for the shirt that he was playing in. Prolific, in the team. Just somebody who nowadays, sort of represented the club impeccably. And as Steve was alluding to, they had other opportunities to go elsewhere, but chose not to and stick around. It's an unusual trait for professional sports people to have, especially in times of adversity as well. So yeah, lots of really, really fun memories about Fletch playing.
Bazza, it's Magic Weekend up next. Is it something you look forward to?
Yeah, mate, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm doing the full weekend this year. It's always a good event, isn't it? I think my favourite one was down in Cardiff. That was epic. That, especially turning on Aubrey in our first appearance at Magic back in the day. That was brilliant. That, yeah, I love Magic Weekend. It's good.
Yeah, obviously it was at Ellen Road last time out. We're back up in Newcastle. By all accounts, ticket sales are going to surpass Ellen Road, and they're going to be, I think, the highest since pre-COVID. So great to see so many people backing it. Rovers and that lot are leading the way in ticket sales. Of course, it's probably a good opportunity for that lot to get over and experience playing at a different ground, because of course they won't be able to do that this season with the fact that they're not going to be in the grand final or the Challenge Cup final, or probably even the playoffs. But we digress. Bazza, it's always a great occasion. And Sam Luckley, of course, he's been the poster boy for it. He's a out-and-out Geordie. He absolutely loves playing there. Of course, he did that famous Shearer celebration when he played for Salford in front of the Gallowgate end. The weather looks like it's going to be red hot. Hopefully the rugby league's red hot. I suppose the only dampener on it, Bazza, is that we're playing Salford. And at the moment, Salford have been, for a variety of reasons, been abysmal, haven't they? And it's not necessarily the game that many people would have hoped for to go watch.
Yeah, well, you say it's abysmal. I don't want to sound too cocky, but I think in Salford's situation right now, I think the club will appreciate this game. Not saying that they'll take it lightly, but we've just had 4 really, really intense games, all twice, Wigan and Leeds. So I think it'll be quite welcome for the club. And for me, losing Tanganoa last week, I'd be very, very happy to see 𝗬𝗓𝗏 have a go in second row, because he's got that sort of Junior and December build about him. And, I think it's not all dull and gloom. I think we'll have an opportunity to see a few fringe players like Leyland, Doro get the shot, see a bit more Jack Brown. So it's not the end of the world playing Salford in the current situation, but I think currently, I think it'll be welcomed secretly, if that makes sense, with us having the Challenge Cup the following week.
Yeah, of course, Graham. That Challenge Cup game is such a big, huge, important occasion. Big game for the Robins, and Bazza's probably right in terms of for what the Robins need right now. Salford is that there's always that thing about you can never take your opposition lightly, but we've not seen anything really to suggest that Salford are going to be at the same level as Leeds was, for example, on Friday. And they've obviously weakened former Robin now. Chris Atkins gone and joined Castleford. The problem is Salford keep losing players, but they're not able to replenish, and they're not bringing players in to replace them. And do you know what I think? You know, on a side note, fair credit to Paul Rowley, how he's able to still get them competing. And the players who are still putting the bodies on the line, it must be a really weird training camp for them to because they also know they're not under pressure in terms of their starting spots because someone's going to nick it. They are literally the last bodies there. So I mean that can foster a bit of a dad's army, a bit of a togetherness, a bit of a spirit about how we're going to go face game. But whatever lineup Rovers put out, I'd expect them to beat them convincingly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that the danger for us is we get complacent and don't treat it seriously as a game. Yes, it's still 2 points. It's the same 2 points that are available every single week. And if we show any sort of drop in our standards, I think that'll be the worry for me, because then we have to pick those standards back up for next week at York and the semi-final. So I'd like to see us maintain the same standards all the way through that and play as if it was Leeds or a Wigan or a Hull that turning up. Look, we've seen upsets before. We don't want to be on the wrong end of a banana skin here. Absolutely not. But I agree with Bazza. It'd be good to see maybe Leyland getting more minutes under his belt in a non-pressure situation, dare I say, I won't say the result is guaranteed, but you'd expect us fully to win and win well with that one. So, yeah, can we use it as a chance to rest a body or two? Tanganoa's got the mandatory protocol rest anyway. Burgess should be coming back into the reckoning, as you said at the beginning, Johno. We're recording this before squads are announced and the presser takes place. So we will assume that Burgess has passed protocols and he would come back into contention to get his legs moving again in a game situation in advance of next week. Is anybody carrying a bump or a bruise that needs to sort of make way? Can Brown step into one of those 4 starting prop roles, for example, and give somebody more minutes on the bench or relax or something? So that there's various bits and pieces. But that said, I still expect whoever the 1 to 17, 1 to 18 are to come out with the same attitude and desire that we showed last week and the week before and the week before. Don't expect standards.
Sorry, Graham. I think you're absolutely right there. But I think another thing that'll be in Willie Peters' mind is the points difference between us and Wigan. I mean, they've got 40, 50 odd points on us now. So I think he'll also use this game to potentially narrow that point difference. You know, later down the track, if we lose one, they win one, we could still sit top. And I think the league leadership might come down to goal difference this year. So I think Willie Peters might have that in mind as well at the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went for the jugular and went to put on a big score against Salford as well.
It's a tough one, that, though, isn't it, Bazza? Because I think first and foremost, Willie Peters will be just win the game, get the 2 points. Yeah. I think that's more maybe of an in-game thing when if the scoreline's whatever after so many minutes and he thinks we could go for this, that's when you go for the jugular. It's really hard to plan. I'm going to go back to the Oldham Challenge Cup game. So this was a lineup. So it was Jack Broadbent at fullback. We had Tom Davis and Hiku, Gildart and Kershaw, Richardson, May, Sue Litton, Whitbread, Tanganoa, Batchelor, Minchella. And then we had on the bench Luckley, Brown, Doro, Leyland. I think that's a pretty strong lineup in it, and that was against Oldham. So the chances are, unless... So I think we know Tanganoa is not playing. Davis, Burgess, there's still, let's be honest, a question mark as we record this. The squad may be different, but there's a big question mark. And if there is a question mark, this is is probably a game where you go, well, let's not risk them. We don't need to. So then you go, well, probably Kershaw will come back in. Of course, don't forget Morg's cup tied for the Challenge Cup. So he's not going to be playing against Catalan. So you'd expect, well, he's definitely going to be playing. You're probably not resting Lewis or May because Lewis is on red hot form at the moment, and he seems to be a player who needs to play. You don't. So you go, well, Richardson's probably not going to line up. Maybe there. Doro's the big one, isn't it? Is Doro going to be able to come back in, or is Peters going to do something different, and we're going to see potentially some of the other fringe players? Don't forget, we've got Leon Ruin, who's not featured yet. Of course, when Peters names the 21-man squad, he's making a feature now of naming some of the academy players who will come into the reserve grade. So we saw Fishwick; he was in the last 21-man squad. We saw Noah Booth the week before. So yeah, it's a hard one to predict at the moment. Until you see the 21-man squad, it's hard to predict. But I still think, Bazza, Peters will go as strong as he can.
Yeah, I do. I think the only question mark for me and is Mikey Lewis. Like, he's had that foot injury and we got away with that one. But then he's having this niggle on his groin. Now, I might get a few pelters from 90% of the Rovers fans. Would it be worth risking him against Salford? I know he wants to be on the big stage. Or would you at least have him on the bench, or at least Richardson on the bench? Because if he's carrying a slight tear in his groin, the last thing we need is to lose Lewis in that semi-final. So, yeah, it does need to keep going, but I don't know. I'm just wary because he's carrying this little knock, and the stranger things have happened. And for me, I'd at least have Richardson on the bench just in case.
Yeah. Well, going into that Oldham game, it might give you a little bit of an insight how it could go on. And I tell you what, we have been totally presumptuous here in terms of expecting Rovers to go put big score on Salford, because it might not pan out that way. And that's maybe where, as supporters, we need to temper our opinion to go, hang on, there's still a game of rugby to be played, and whatever you might think might happen. Although so far this season, Graham, there's nothing to suggest. I just want to, so it might look like, so Minchella against Oldham, he went off after 58 minutes and Whitbread came on. He played loose forward. We saw Sulcutt go off after 28 minutes. Luckily came on. Luckily didn't go back off again until the 69th minute. So he played big minutes. Leyland came on from Lytton on the 53rd minute. So basically they built up a scoreline and then they started rotating the players off. And that's when the game was won. And I wonder if maybe that's the route they'll look to go down if they get the opportunity to do that. Yeah,
I would be surprised if they didn't want to go win the game first and put it to bed and then start to tinker. The danger is if it doesn't go to plan and you've got dare I say, rested some of your star players and you then the game doesn't pan out as you think it should do, you're then up against it. How do you turn that around? So I think he will go strong. That's always been in his conferences. That's always been his mantras. The strongest team possible we've got, barring resting for injury or whatever. So I think he will. I'd like to think that, as you've both alluded to, that I'd love to see Doro getting a role, and Peters has alluded to this in presser as well. That, and I just wonder, with him sending him out on loan for game time, whether that was a precursor to bringing him back game ready, as opposed to just training, and then put him into a game. He's now put him into 2 or 3 weeks of game situation. So I wonder if that was a precursor to something like this happening, where we were Tanganoa down and there's an opportunity in a relatively safe environment with still a strong team around him to give him 30 minutes, 40 minutes under his belt at Super League level. Are you still there, John? Have you fell asleep?
Yeah, and don't pass Salford this season already. And don't forget as well, that Salford side that we played, they're actually weaker now. So,
much weaker,
much weaker. It is what it is, isn't it? We expect Yeah, we expect the Robins to come away with a victory. The scoreline is probably what's in question. What do you make of the Salford situation, Bazza, at the moment? Because, of course, there's talk now that the NRL, the Roosters, they want to invest in them only if the NRL investment in terms of the Super League comes in. There just seems to be lurching from one, not crazy, but, lurching from one or to another to another bid, all whilst at the same time we're trying to keep the integrity of the competition, which is basically, the team's putting the best players out, and it just seems to be all a bit messy, and it's a shame that the way it's being played at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we never want to see any Super League team like disintegrate, especially the way Salford have. But I don't
know, Bazza. You say that.
Well, LFC.
There's one team that I'd like to see.
Yeah, LFC. We'll go with that. But would miss the derbies if they went. So you got to say that. But no. Well, yeah, they're black and white, aren't they? But no, with Salford, this has been happening for years, and I think the RFL have got to hold their hands up and hold themselves accountable for allowing them to spend more than they've got. Have they been fiddling the books? Who knows? But there's people at the club don't even know what's going on. Things like they don't know where the wages have come from. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of speculation in the media and whatnot. I think if the NRL don't come in and buy them, I think it'll do them the world of good. Get relegated. Do what we did. Do what Lee did. Wakefield did. Go down. Rebrand, restart, and rebuild again, and we need that Manchester-based club in the competition. And Salford have done some good things for the over the years, apart from relegating us. But we don't want to talk about that. But it's they've always had the underdog story, and they've played some really nice rugby. I don't know whether they get sorted out or not. All I'm bothered about, mate, is my club and going from strength to strength, to be honest with you, and that's all I'm happy about.
Which leads us nicely, Bazza, to question time. Matt Gregson over on X, he's put serious question, so take this seriously. There's been talk of a slump in form, Graham, from some quarters. Do we see that? If so, poor timing with a Challenge Cup semi-final Saturday week. Do you think there's a slump in form? I don't know.
What, by the team or by individual players, or what's the context of that?
You interpret that as however you want.
I don't see that. If there has been, it's been very slight. I wouldn't call it a slump. I'd say maybe performance levels haven't been as sparkling as we've seen before. But don't forget that recent run of games that we've alluded to of 2 derbies, Wigan and Leeds. Tough opponents, tough games. You're not going to be blowing those teams off the park every single week. So you've got to work out the right way to win a game. And we've come out on top in 3 out of those 4 games. So we obviously came up short in the Wigan game. But I wouldn't call losing 1 game all season a slump in form in any way.
No, and to be fair, other than the Salford game in Super League, we've been in an arm wrestle for periods during every game, haven't we? So we haven't got our own way, but we've come out on top. Bazza, this is
it's still week 9.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I've got an interesting question, but I don't know if I'll pose it because it's a theoretical one. It goes on for ages, but maybe I might save that for later. Jack on X, Bazza says, if you could bring 1 forward and 1 back into the side from the last 15 seasons, who would you pick and who would you drop for them? E.g., bringing 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗃 for May or Wayman for Whitbread. And then he says, if a quarter player is picked, you must drop a quarter player. I tell you what, forget that. Just go straight for...
I'll make it easy. Does it have to be a prop or someone in the pack?
I think like for like. Like for like.
Like for like. Oh, it's a tough one, that, because Benny Galea or Clint Newton. Ooh.
Do they get in this side now? Do they get in? I don't know. Do they? That's a big question, isn't it?
I think Benny Galea would. I think
I'd Vered more on Newton.
And backs. What backs would I change? I'd bring Sean Briscoe back, but would I replace Morg for him? I don't know. That's a horrible question.
It's a tough question, that one, Graham. It's a tough one.
It's Peter Fox.
Very, very subjective, that one, because it depends what you're going for. And I agree with Bazza. I love Gallagher and Newton as a combo in the back row. Sort of 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was now. That was devastating for us in terms of our attack. In the backs, again, it depends what you want to replace. Do you go in the halves and bring Michael Dobson back? Do you go full back and bring Sean Briscoe? Do you go feed the Fox? Yeah, it's all subjective, that one.
I think there's a good argument to maybe suggest if you had Lewis and Dobson, or do you think they're too similar? Was it too similar?
Similar, I think. Yeah, too similar.
Yeah.
Jake Webster, bring him back in the centres. Bring the snake back.
It's a tough one, yeah. It's a great question. It's one out.
One for the pub, that one, I think. Do you know where you can spend all night talking about that?
Yeah. Craig Lucas says, do we know if long-term overseas players will come off the quota next year? There's a meeting, I think, this week, aren't they? Is it this week where they're discussing?
Next month, isn't it?
Today.
Yeah, where they're discussing what's going to happen with that. It'll benefit the Robins massively, because if that comes into place around what they're suggesting, which is, I think, if you've played over, is it for 5 years or you've had 5-year residency? You come off the quota spot and you think, wow, that puts us in a different ballgame. So it does need sorting out, doesn't it? Because the one thing that the Robins like doing is recruitment early, and this is a game changer in terms of that. In terms of who you could then recruit on the back of having 2 more quota spots available.
It is, but I think it'll come with terms and conditions. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we'll not Reece Martin, Leppi and whatnot off, but I think there will be terms and conditions to say, right, yeah, you can replace them with 2 quarters, but you can only have X, Y, and Z in your starting 17. So I think it will be a tricky one.
Yeah.
Rob, the danger with that one, Johno, is that it's applicable to every team as well. It's not just our team who benefits from it. It's the Bevan Frenches of this world that come off quota as well, potentially, and stuff like that, and opens up the door for more, dare I say, more imports that take the spaces of, the homegrown players. So again, it's be careful what you wish for sometimes, I think, on this one. It's a tricky one.
I think that's what Bazza mentioned about, actually, within your squad, you can have whoever, but in your match day squad, you may have to have.
Yeah.
Was it the Champions League in the 90s where you could only have so many foreign players in your team or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a Champions League. That's taking me back. Anyway, right. Rob Cole's on it. He says, with the next game in Salford, do you think it's a good chance to rest someone? I think we've answered that. And then Cam Bibbs, would you be tempted to give Jez the week off with his workload he's having to get through? No Mickey Mack, and we've got big games coming up. It'd be a big call, wouldn't it, to go with Leyland for... I understand it. I think it'd be a big call.
I'd have Jez on reduced minutes, providing we're in control of the game. But like Graham said earlier, if the game's not going our way, we need Jez to come on and turn it around. Same with the Mikey. That's why I suggested maybe having Danny Richardson on the bench if we are in control. Take one of your half-backs off, give them a breather, ready for next week, you know what I'm saying? But no, Bill Leyland's not ready for an 18-minute performance. Even though Salford have played it, it's still a Super League side.
Just a question then. How was that all? Because is there not now like I don't know the right phrases, but like a player has to be rested, given so many minutes rest out of playing time across the course of a longer period of time, like almost like a tachograph, isn't it? They're only allowed to work for so long before they need to.
That was announced, wasn't it, at the start of last season, and then I think that was to do with it was to do with head knocks, wasn't it, and concussions and the potential for that, and then player workload. Then I think at the start of this season they rescinded it because basically the research they'd done during the course of last season showed that actually there was no ill effect. I think there's still a thing about players' minutes. Players still can only play so many minutes. I I don't think it's consideration at the moment because it was. But for a side like Rovers who are potentially going to be playing, ultimately nearly every game that they can possibly play this season, and I don't think it counts for internationals, but it's consideration come the back end of the season. But I think there's no way that we're going into that game with Leyland as the only recognised hooker.
No.
But there's a question mark, isn't there, about opportunities to rest players, but we've already talked about, the game, what might happen. It's all ifs, buts and maybes. We'll see on Saturday, won't we? What comes up. Hopefully it's a big scoreline because, like Bazza said, that points difference, when you look at Wigan chasing us down 2 points behind with a better points difference, it could come into play. And we saw the benefit of St Helens putting big points past Salford and their points difference, how it could come into play. So we'll see that. Guys, thanks for joining me, the Robin Pod Weekly. Hopefully next time we get to chat, we're talking about Rovers still being top of Super League, and we get a chance to talk about more points and the Robins on their way to Wembley, because that could be very much on the horizon after the Magic weekend. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Singing a song when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. Singing a song when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the